Hi, everybody. Welcome to Conversations with Calvin, We the Species. I'm wired. I'm wired because this is such an unusual, unique, special interview with Lorenz Tyson. I hope I'm saying it right. And this is coming to you live, a split screen from Warsaw, Poland, and from Monmouth County, New Jersey. And this is so special, and I marvel at the universe up there for connecting Lorenz and myself. And it took a kind of a week or two and connecting, and we find out we've got all these commonalities and fascinations and interests, and of course, then once I digested and I read the background of Lorenz, it's like, oh wow, this is perfect. It's a background. By the way, this is stuff they make movies about. You know, your life journey.
Yeah.
No, they may. I mean, who we're going to talk about it, but who starts out at 14 and so successful? We'll talk about that. But anyway, so I am so wide and excited about that. And on top of which, I mentioned to Lorenz, I'm going to be doing 40 interviews in and around this very special interview with filmmakers and directors and actors as part of the Garden State Film Festival, which I love. And so this is intense, and I'm wired. And I'm really excited about this because we're going to be on a journey, a collaborative journey. This is great stuff. So I'm done with my monologue. I'm going to turn it over to Lorenz. Just a quick little bio, and then we're going to jump in. Just a little quick background, and we'll jump
Yep.
in. We've got a lot to do. This is great. Thank you.
Absolutely. Perfect. Yeah, I'm really excited to be here as well. And we had a super great conversation before we started the actual recording. So I think this part will even be more exciting.
Perfect. 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 So, um, I like this. Tell us about your first emotions
Yep.
when you started to earn and do stuff online. You were 14 years old.
hmm
Um, how are you doing it, and what did it feel like? You're 14 years old and you're doing
Yep.
these amazing things. Talk about that.
Yeah. So the story behind it is the first actual paycheck I made, also online, was when I was 14 years old. It was money I actually made myself. And those first few feelings were extremely special. And what it brought to me was not just that single payment, but it was what I could do with it. Now I remember this because back when I made this money, it was quite a long time ago, obviously. I was 14 years old when I actually got that payment, but then from the period of like let's say 14 to 17, I didn't really do any entrepreneurial thing. So it was a small part of my initial story. But what is super great, the initial feelings, what you're asking about, it gave me the feeling of accessibility and control because I got money and I could buy something. I could do something which I bought something which I wanted to have.
Wow.
Now, in this case, I bought a gaming console. I bought a video game console, like a PlayStation back in the day. So I bought that with my money and I was so proud about it because I made the money myself. I did that. It's great to reflect on that because the feelings about money has changed a lot. I remember that the majority of all the time from, let's say, the past few years, every time I got money in my bank, I was extremely excited. I was super excited every time I got a payment, but that has changed a bit. Now I'm much more in a position where I'm a little bit emotionless about it. I'm quite realistic, like, okay, great, payments is in. I've got bill to pay. We got things to take care of, so I'm just moving forward. Let's make more money in that sense. Um, but the feelings towards it have been changed a lot, and that initial feeling has really allowed me to get some fuel to move forward as well.
Okay, great, great. Do you remember this? What was the first online skill that you kind of taught yourself, you mastered?
Yep. Yeah, I think it's twofold. The biggest skill I've started to learn quite early on is being super resourceful. And that basically means watching YouTube videos, looking things up online, finding answers, and taking my own conclusions with that. So being resourceful has been kind of the biggest thing that allowed me to be where I wanted to be because it's, being proactive. And with that as well, I'd have to put in here making connections with people. I kind of like to think that I did that early on as well, which is, actually looking to grow conversation with people, So being super proactive with that, and that's definitely the first skill. I would say that's the real skill, which is being proactive in resources and connections.
Yeah. By the way, I want you to know, I don't know how many people interview you, but I'm taking notes.
I love that. That's
I'm,
amazing. Yeah.
I'm taking notes. I'm a note taker, from
Yeah.
Rutgers University. I take notes, but this is really interesting stuff. So I'm taking notes. If you see me writing, it's because I can always listen to this. But anyway, okay. So now we jump to now. So what are some of the skills? Because this is interesting. What are some of the skills you're mastering now in your position at Bethpage of managing like a full team of people
hmm
and lots of clients. You got a large amount of clients. So what are some of the
hmm
skills you're mastering now?
Yeah. One of the biggest skills right now to me is planning. Planning for myself and for my team. And with that also comes expectation management. It's such a big thing, which I've learned, which is actually being able to set expectations for myself, for the people I manage, and for the actual outcome of the management, like the client of the project, whatever that could look like. So planning is a super big thing. You have to obviously plan in priorities. You have to make sure that you prioritize certain things. And if you're managing other people, you kind of have to plan multiple things at the same time. Now, one of the great things I learned, a super great insight, is from a Dutch entrepreneur called Peter Zwart. He's the owner of Coolblue, which is essentially the biggest online store in the Netherlands and Belgium. I believe in Germany it's dominating a lot as well. And what he said, super interesting, is that priority management is not necessarily about what you do first and then what you do second, but it's about how do you make sure that you move forward with everything at the same time, but just feed more attention to what is really important. So that's something I'm focusing on a lot, which is planning, management for myself and for everybody that works with me.
Okay. Um, Many people say this expression, riches is in the niches.
hmm
Um, uh, so I want to know what your take as this because your take on this because you're working with so many different various industries now at Bethpage. So what's the strategy behind riches is in the niches?
Yeah. Well, obviously, if you are positioned in one particular niche, it's a great position to be in because it allows you to truly dominate that field. You can be quickly or seen as an authority. It allows you to have more specific connections. So it's only great to be super experienced in a particular niche. But I see a lot of people who are saying that that's the only way to go about it, or you have to necessarily focus on one aspect. And I think there's so much more nuance to it. Because if you are, let's say, a security person, you're doing security, you could do that in a club where people are partying, but you could also do that for a government official. You could do that in a private setting. So it's the same way in a business setting. Specifically, if you're looking at service-based businesses, even more specific service-based businesses online, whether that's a marketing agency, website agency, all these different type of things, you can apply all of that to different industries. Now, I've worked with various industries. I worked with car dealerships, real estate, crypto-related projects, many service-based, all these different type of things which are quite unique and different, but I'm applying the same skill set.
Uh-huh.
Now, what I think is a great way to approach this is that you can market it differently. And that's kind of a next level thing. But if you are able to provide certain value, services, or product to, basically almost everybody, you could say, you can find a sweet spot by creating a unique messaging for a certain group, for a certain target audience. And that could be your niche. But it doesn't have to be only that, right? So
Mhm.
that's kind of the nuance I approach with it.
Okay. In my readings, etc., there was a term called pre-influence tactics.
Mhm.
What is that?
Yeah, so pre-influence is something we apply with influencer press, and it's such a big concept because it basically tells that you sell people before they get on a call with you.
Okay.
Now, what we are doing is we're leveraging press, and we do that in a sales context, in a marketing context. So, to give you an idea, we help entrepreneurs, we get them on publications, we get them on even like billboards, TV shows, a lot of these different things, and we show them how to utilize it. Now, the reason we do all of this is because we have to meet people where they are at, and you'd have to really go a lot of levels deep into how you position yourself as an entrepreneur, as a business, and install the right buying beliefs for prospects. Now, pre-influence basically means that you're pre-selling clients, you're pre-selling future prospects. And one of the main vehicles we use to do that is press. So we position that and we leverage that in a certain way where if somebody scheduled a call with you, there's high interest. They're already sold. So we say that we pre-sell people for like 80% before they get on a call with you.
Okay. The old 80-20 rule.
Yep.
You know, that actually, a lot of people don't know this. A little history tidbit. I love the 80-20 rule because it works in everything in life. It's like, it was formulated by an Italian economist named Pareto,
Yep.
and it was the 80-20 rule. Great thing. Everything you do in life is 80-20,
Hmm.
basically. All right. We're going to take a little bit of an off-topic break, and I'm going to ask you one of my favorite questions. And actually, you don't even have to answer it, but it's kind of a cool question. So here goes. Excluding family or friends,
Hmm.
somebody living or dead you'd like to spend a day with.
Such a great question.
It
I'm
is.
inclined to give multiple answers. It's a little bit hard to formulate that exact answer. I do think. Wait, Sarah, you're saying excluding family,
Yes,
or
excluding family or friends. Just,
hmm that makes it a little bit more difficult. You're making it hard here, so
oh,
that's
well, that's the
I have
idea.
to I have to do my best. But well, there's certainly one person that comes to mind, which is a person I've looked up to from a very young age, which is Curtis Jackson. He's also known as the rapper 50 Cent. I think it's a person who has been able to really master a lot of different parts of life. He's been able to grow up from whatever activities he was doing to becoming a big musician artist to now dominating the TV industry. So many different facets. I think it's a really interesting person. It's one of the entrepreneurs I really look up to the most. So I'd love to have a day with him. Once that does happen, I'd like to prepare myself as good as I can to absorb a lot of great knowledge. But that's the first one who comes to mind. So
Okay, great answer. I wrote it down too. I'm gonna check it out myself. Okay, back to work.
yeah.
Um, uh, yeah, you started at 14 and you're doing all these things. Did you ever dream? Did you dream that you'd be running your own company one day? Do you ever think about that?
Well, not always, but there has been a point where it became always. There's been a long time in my life where I didn't know what I wanted to do. And that's kind of how I tell my own story, which started out by not knowing what I wanted to do. And then I gained power by figuring out what is it that I really don't want to do. So I begin to come closer to what I wanted to do. And the conclusion I drew quite quickly was, well, I need to do something extraordinary. I need to do something outside of a normal job. So entrepreneurship seems to be that golden path. So from the moment I got that realization, I've always thought I need to have my own company someday. So it was a early belief I
Yeah.
got at the right time, but ever since that moment, the vision of having a company was always there.
No, not because I'm sitting here with you, but as I'm absorbing and taking notes and absorbing all this, starting out at 14, you've had quite an amazing journey. You're a young guy, and it's extraordinary. And I said it earlier. There's a movie here, about your journey. There is. And we're going to learn more about it as time goes on in our collaboration. But so good segue. What advice would you give to young people? I do a lot of stuff with Gen Zs. What advice? And I taught. So, what
Yep.
advice?
I think the best advice I can give is to try to maximize as much of life as quickly as possible. One of the biggest things I did for myself is moving to another country. And if I look back at it, and it's very easy to say that, it's very easy to say, oh, I wish I did this. But one of the things I believe which could have a great effect is if I first of all moved out way sooner to another country, but also moved to different countries. I should have went 1 year to Poland, which I did right now, but I should then go maybe 1 year to Thailand or Dubai and move places. I think that would be a very great step because you will be able to see so much of the world. And if you're stagnant, if you're always in the same situation, it's hard to grow. So adaptability is a big thing, and you'll naturally adapt quite quickly. So if you force yourself to go somewhere else, you'll notice how quickly you get comfortable. So I think the best way to push that is to try to maximize that, to travel, to try to do a lot of things, to take that course, to perhaps go to a college or university or whatever that could look like, but just maximize a lot of things, a lot of risks, do things, try things, and just do that as quickly as possible in the very first few years you can.
Okay, great answer. Um, great answer. So, people haven't noticed you're a young guy. You are a young guy. You have a big team. So, how do you cope with the big team?
Mhm.
And then how do you find time for yourself?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's something I have to continuously evolve with myself. I think the best way to handle a big team is to have a lot of clarity about it. And that's something I really had to figure out as well, which is if you are going to hire somebody or if you're going to team up or you're going to do a shared project, you need to be clear about what that's going to look like. If you're going to hire somebody and you're thinking, all right, I have this vision of making more sales by having him or her help me with this, well, that could be great, but you really need to be strategic and very specific. This task is what's going to have to be completed by this person. So being super clear, having a lot of clarity and direction, because that all will also will allow you to structure that to say, okay, we have this person doing this thing, and we have systems that you build alongside of that. So I'm a super big fan of documenting things. I use a tool called Notion where I document a lot of things. I document a lot. I even count how many push-ups I do every day. I count how many times I get paid in a week. I just track a lot of data, and I kind of apply that for my personal self to track, to keep notice, and also to apply that for scheduling a team where you say, okay, this is what this person is responsible for, or what I'm going to use that person for. And what I notice a big thing you're doing, especially in a context of online business, and you're doing it from a position of starting by yourself and then having more people, is you're effectively multiplying yourself. That's what you're doing from a early stage of hiring people, as far as I know. So you have to figure out how to do that, which is this is what I want to achieve. This is what I know that we have to do. So you have to document that, whether that's making videos, writing it out. So you have to make it easy for people to execute that so that you can multiply yourself. That's kind of a big insight I've learned. So that's a big thing. And the last thing, I take a lot of notes and I live by my calendar. I don't like to count too much on my memory. Now, I don't think I have a bad memory, but if I have to put everything in my mind, it just becomes difficult. So I rather note something down and put in my calendar, send this person this message, check on this at this time, so that I don't have to try to memorize it. I can just rely on my system. So that's a super big thing to me, both personally and professionally.
Boy, do we have stuff in common. I told you I'm taking notes.
Yep.
You're a note taker. I'm a note taker. And then the other thing you said to me, this is great. You document everything. You know how many push-ups you do. So I got this little thing. This is an EKG machine.
Okay.
This takes my EKG. I put my two fingers up here like that, and I check my EKG because I check it, and I check it like 50 times a day, and I document.
Hmm.
I document. Why? Well, because I guess I'm OCD. I don't know. But the notes and the documentation, so we're a lot alike, Lorenz. It's great.
Yep.
Let's lighten a little bit. I love this question. Um, what books inspire you? And
Mhm.
also in parentheses, movies. What books and what
Mm.
movies inspire you? And this is really important, where do you get your energy from?
Yeah. But it's a threefold question. It's an interesting one. I love this. It's super great. So when it comes to books, there's many. There's so many great books. What I really like about books is that it allows you to almost have a new perspective. You can dive into a subject or a story, whatever that type of book is, and it allows you to completely dive into that. And a lot of times it's new. You're not usually reading things that you already know. So you're almost always learning in an entertaining way, right? It's not like a forced way to learn, but it's almost like a curiosity based learning experience. So that's what I really like about books. Now, to name some specific books, I'd have to really think about what the best ones are, but I'm a big fan of Robert Greene. I really like the work he's doing with his books. One book, particularly, that has brought the most impact to my life is The 50th Law, which is a crossover from Robert Greene and Curtis Jackson. that book has brought me a lot of insights. It's the first book I really read, and I've read it multiple times. And what's so great about it is that it allowed me to get confirmation on the things I was figuring out in life. So in that book, they describe a lot of things, for example, about how important it is to see reality for what it is, to grab opportunities, to know your environment. And while I was reading this for the first time, I felt confirmation. I felt like these things that I'm thinking and trying to figure out how life works and what I have to conclude as facts of life, let's say, I got that confirmation. So that's been the biggest, most important book. When we look at movies, I kind of have a completely different approach. For me, movies and series is more entertainment. So I much rather am inclined to to watch a movie or series that's as, informational as a book. But the type of movies I super like is mostly centered around one person, which is very powerful. Now, that doesn't have to mean that that person was positive. For example, I super love a show which is tailored around Pablo Escobar. Now, that's quite a hot topic I'm touching on because it's a little bit sensitive to talk about it because of whatever the man has done. But I super like to watch a movie like that because it's one person who, whether that's good or bad, did so much. He had such a big impact, and he managed to do so many things. And now that's horrible examples of certain things he's done. But it's to me so interesting to watch certain things like that. So yeah, that's kind of my answer to that. When it comes to getting energy, I get a lot of energy from accomplishment. Progress feeds me. It really allows me to get new energy. So I like to accomplish things. I like to just have progress. I like to be able to reflect on a certain time frame and see the progress I made, and that just gives me energy. So
Great, great answers. Great answers. Um, People have heard me mention Breath Page. Talk
mhm.
a little bit about Breath Page and
Yep.
what you do there.
Yeah, so Breadpage is the company I started while I was a college student. Now, eventually, I dropped out of college and kept the business running. But we started out, or actually, I started out by programming websites. And that's still the core thing we do. We're a website agency, but we're applying it to a broad context. So we are specialized in world-class websites. We do a very luxury type of design, but we also combine that with an ecosystem focus. So we map out exactly the entire focus of the business. What role does that website play in it? How does it help you to really, have you focus on your high leverage activities, automate things in the background? So it's a very big thing. But BradPage is essentially a website agency. We're quite established in Europe. We've gotten a lot of press recognition, things like that as well. We've worked with many different industries. It's kind of my baby that I've grown as a college student, which is still the thing I'm holding on to, and it's a big part of my personal progress as well. Because
Okay.
as your business grows, you're growing as a person as well, and
Good.
as you're growing as a person, your business grows as well.
It's funny you said college student. There's another college student who started a business. He started a company called Facebook.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Mark Zuckerberg. So you're a college student. He's a college student. Interesting. Next thing, some comments on the world of personal branding.
Hmm.
And I don't know. Listen, I work for Luxottica, and my boss, was 30 billion. So I learned a lot of stuff from Leonardo Del Vecchio and Claudio Del Vecchio, and they're headquartered in Italy, and I spent 25 years there. So there's a lot of stuff stuck inside. But when I was starting my journey, I said to myself in a very, very simplistic way, I need to come up with a personal brand. So I said one day, you know what? It's simple, it's easy. I'll put the hat on, and I put the hat on, and it stays with me right up until I get into bed. And my wife makes me take it off because she gets really upset when I wear a hat to bed. So, but seriously, this has become my personal brand. And in my very limited view of the world, this has been very helpful, and it's changed. And
Hmm.
in some ways, it's been transformative in my life because everybody knows I wear this hat and they associate the hat with me. And so,
Hmm.
some comments on personal branding.
Yeah. It's a great thing you're bringing up because you're giving yourself a unique character aspect, which allows you to be identified almost, right? If you look at it from a super logical standpoint. So I think that's great, and you'll see that pattern as well if you look at some super high level celebrity type of things, where people have a very purpose reason for wearing something or doing something. It's for example as well, you could have approach of life of being full of tattoos because it will give you a certain image. There's so many different things you can do to almost hack your perception, right? Now, if I look at Brandon, I think that's a big thing you're doing, which is the perception around you, which is not about coming up with something that's it's not true, but it's organizing that truth and it's being able to show the best version of yourself. Now, I like to think, and I always say that the best sales hack is who you are as a person and who you are as a company. So if you are able to work on branding, which is basically how do you view that, how do you put that in the best possible light, that's what branding really does. It allows you to, showcase yourself in the most powerful way.
Okay. All right, two more questions because I have the suspicion that we could go on for a couple more hours,
Hmm.
but actually it's late. It, it's probably 10:30 in Poland, right?
Yeah, correct. Yes, yes.
Late. Still
Running late
late for
hours,
me.
but
Sun's still out over here. If I like this question. If your top competitors ever got access to all your, your internal stuff and your strategies and stuff, what is this one intrinsic secret advantage type thing that they could never
Mhm.
replicate?
Such
Great
a
question.
great question.
It
Well,
is.
the competitors could steal processes, but they can never steal the person, right? So it's very difficult to replace a certain person, and it also could not replace the connections with that person, right? I want to approach business in a way where I have built relationships with both people in my team as well as clients, where even if they could have a technical better offer, they wouldn't go for it because of the loyalty, because of the dedication. I think that's something which is not possible to get replaced. And on top of that, it's also about the context and the application. We could do the exact same thing online, but it might just not work at all for you, while it will work perfectly for me. So it's such a nuanced thing. I don't even think that there's one golden rule. I don't even think there's one magic path to take that will always work. And that's why I think it's super important that you are able to make your own conclusions and focus on what's making progress for you. You have to learn from other people. You might even steal some ideas, but it's all about what works in your context, right? So I don't think anybody can change or adapt or influence or steal your specific context, which is who you are as a person.
That's right. It's your uniqueness, and nobody can
Yeah.
ever take that. My mother used to tell me that whatever is up here, nobody can ever take. It's
Hmm.
mine. And
Yep.
I always lived with that. Last thing, for now, because maybe you'll come back and we'll do more of these because this is great stuff. So we talked about that. I like this too. What's the most brutal feedback you ever got? And how did you use that brutal feedback to become better? How did you grow from it?
Yeah. It's almost a hard question because it makes me think about what has truly been the brutal feedback. And the brutal feedback to me is the reality facing, is the reality framing, which is a hard slap of exactly realizing where you are and taking complete responsibility for that. That's the effect that happened to me when I got the most brutal feedback I got, which it was is I remember it. I know what it is because there was a conversation I had with somebody who was asking for advice when I did not really know what it is I wanted to do because I had to move to a different house. I had to move to a different place. I was in a situation where I needed to move out. I was 20 or 21 years old then, which is a few years ago. And somebody told me that you essentially effed up yourself by delaying the process of becoming a man. That was some of the most brutal feedback I got, which was a direct confrontation to myself like he's right. I need to take full control and I need to actually take my own step and I should have done it way earlier. So that's I guess the most brutal conversation I ever had, but it's also been one of the most powerful one because
Yeah,
it allowed me to actually make a decision. It forced me to make a decision. It helped me realize that,
yeah,
and that's been a huge part. So,
yeah. Wow. By the way, this we're done for now. I'm herewith formally invite you to come back. We could just talk on so many
Appreciate it.
different things, and my journey through the corporate world, and so many things you said. By the way, this for me has been completely mind expansive listening to you, Lorenz. This is great stuff. Sometimes I say to myself, I should have bumped into you about 20, 30 years ago, but you weren't around, basically, you know. So it is what it is, but you really filled me with so much ideas. This is great stuff. I'm thanking you, and of course, we're going to do some collaboration, and I'll be working with you and further interviews. So you certainly have made my day and beyond. Thank you.
Absolutely amazing to hear that. I think we had a great conversation. I super enjoyed the connection here as well.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful to hear that. It makes my day as well to
Oh,
hear
no,
this.
this is really, really great stuff. We should sell this, bottle this up, and sell it because this is this is the essence, and people need this kind of stuff because the world is changing by the
Mm,
day, and they need to be able to think and come up with ways. And you put all this in such a form that people can think and change. So thank you. I'm going to stop recording now. Don't leave. We'll do a 2-minute wrap. But whoops, uh, this has really been great. Thank you. You really did make my day.